Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMordie, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Shaun Benson. Shaun is, sure, like a second act actor. He did a biochemistry degree and then switched into acting. He was always a performer, but went into biochemistry at Western, did his degree there, and during his time there, he'll talk about this in the episode, but during his time there, he had I'm going to say it, life-changing thing happen, and then went to theater school and has become the actor that he is today. And he is a very successful. He's a very recognizable actor from many, many, many things. Many Canadiana shows, but also just, I don't know, you'll see him. You'll be like, oh, he's the guy from The Thing. I'm like, yeah, that's Shaun Benson. He's an incredible guy, has a wonderful life story and incredible philosophies on life. Please enjoy Shaun Benson. I see it in patients all the time, right? I have certain patients where I know we have half an hour together for an appointment. I'm going to give them 10 minutes to just talk, because they will talk for the entire half an hour if I don't stop them. They're a runaway train. But it's like, no, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to just like talk it out because you are at a volcano exploding.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to cut you off.
The one thing I know with the Meisner I do, with how I had to learn with my students, is we always think we have to go outward and do a thing, but all this is predicated on listening. And more importantly, there's being a good actor, but there's also giving the audience space to lean in. You can't act at them. And when we act at them, they back up. And when we audition too hard, they back up. And when we leave room for either listening or just for the audience to overlay their experience and instead of trying to show all of ours, there's actually space to be successful.
I remember watching, so many things have been about listening in my life, but one thing that really clicked with me the most was I watched this, and of course I'm going to blank on his name. He's a hostage negotiator.
Okay.
And his big thing is especially if you're an extrovert and you just have stories to tell and people like hearing your stories, but you can ramble. I'm like, hello, that's me and my whole family. Your job is to listen to the person across from you and clock what the last word is that they said. And so, especially if you have trouble, not interrupting,
Right.
Because a lot of people express empathy that way. Right? When people are telling a story about, I had a hard time, making my deck on the weekend. I'm like, oh, I want to jump in and tell you my story about making a deck.
Yes.
And it's because that's how we empathize. But it can also be seen as like, me, 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 me.
Yes.
It's like, okay, just sit there and wait for the last word. And you need to hear it in your head. What's the last thing they say? And then your job is to just repeat that word back to them as a question. And then that person usually will just keep talking. And it's funny because people all say, oh, he is the most interesting person in the room. He was the most interesting person at the party.
Totally.
And it's like, did you learn anything about him? Absolutely not. But
Yes.
he was there interested, being like, you were working on your deck this weekend?
Yeah.
This weekend? Like, it's such an interesting thing. And I was like, when you were saying Meisner, I'm like, this is Meisner.
You're just repeating back. And absolutely. And I always say, and again, at some point the show will start, but like, our greatest fears, our greatest desire is to be seen. And what the Meisner thing does is it makes the acknowledgement is immediate. I just heard you. But going back to the empathy thing, I did a post about this a while ago and I got 50-50 response where I was like, we're in this modern time where holding space has more value than relating, right? Because I've always been I have a deck story guy along with yours. And to me, that's a love language.
Yeah.
But for some people, it's like, oh, it's always about them. And it's like, but what else are we doing other than talking about decks now? Like, does everyone just monologue until there's like a namaste at the end and then the next person gets to? Like, I actually don't want to be at that party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's tricky. My dad is dating these days, and he finds it really tricky because a lot of the women he gets connected with are very similar to him. They're like social storytellers.
Mm.
And when you have two people in the room who are trying to listen and wait for the last word and make it a question because they've done like the same type of like conversation training. It's like, okay, we're just asking each other questions
Yep.
because we're both so interested in each other that we're also never learning about each other.
Yeah.
It's a tough balance.
It's a tough balance.
Okay, well, yeah, tell me your story. How did you get into this business?
Oh, it's funny because looking back, it feels inevitable, but it was a very layering things that then ended up being a bag of tools that showed up as being useful for this business. So what I mean by that is, I'm 5 years old. I start playing piano and I do my first rehearsal. I love being on stage or at the recital more than I love playing piano. I remember this. It was in a church and I was just like, this is amazing. And so that was always a part of my deal without ever thinking about acting. I always wanted to give the speeches at school. And I always wanted to, like in high school, would do the announcements every morning for all the clubs. But no part of me ever thought acting. Like I did one play in high school in the last year because I thought it'd be fun. But I also took ballet for 10 years. I started when I was 9. Because when I was that age, a teacher came to my school and did a choreography group. And we went down to the Eaton Center in Guelph and we did Eye the Tiger and New York, New York. And I went home and I was like, Mom, can I take dance lessons? She was like, of course you can. And so I just loved the arts without ever calling them that as a kid. Now, flip side is I love math. I love games. I love playing sports. So it was just sort of like high engagement, give me all of it. And that's why I say in retrospect, it looks like a line, but I loved then leaving the dance and going to play volleyball. So on many levels, it was all about engagement, and being a pretty smart and also what now would be an ADD kid. Like I didn't sit still in class for forever. Like I was quick enough to do the math test and then I go around and bug other kids. I thought I was just chatting and the teacher's like, what are you doing? This is a test. And so for me, again, it was, yeah, the game's done. Now it's time to just engage. So the long and the short of it is I do this play, go to university for biochem, and I'm doing my degree and I'm thinking I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer. And the first week I made the volleyball team, but the coach goes, listen, kid, you're going to be 13th or 14th man, which, 6 aside, you're barely even playing in scrimmage and practice. He goes, I don't know if I want to take that deal, but I do want you to know the spot's yours. And for the first time in my life, I gave up the bragging rights of saying I made the varsity volleyball team. And I went, I don't think I want to do that. Thank you for being honest. And I shook his hand, and this is 1993. So I walked down the UC Hill at Western, and back in the day, there was posts. And there was a white page with the little things along the bottom to get the phone numbers for a dance show. So I pull it off. I call the lady. She goes, wait, you're a guy who can dance and dance ballet? I was like, yeah. She's like, how fast can you get over here right now? So I do this dance show. And then she goes, there's a choreographer who was born in London, Ontario, but lives in New York now, runs one of the premier avant-garde dance companies in New York. She's coming as our artist in residence for the dance program. I need you to meet her. So I meet this woman. You got to understand, Janet, I'm not thinking arts. I'm not thinking I'm any of this. This just feels fun. So I meet this woman and she goes, I'm going to put on some music. And she goes, can you do the show? I said, yeah. To this day, it's one of the best things I ever did. It was a dance show to Tom Waits' Bone Machine, and she was brilliant. And afterwards, she says to me, you could have a career on stage if you wanted. You have what it takes. And that dropped in for me. So I was doing plays at Western while doing my biochem. Little by little, the biochem got boring. Like DNA, recombinant technology, that's an exciting thing to say. But I'm in a lab pipetting into a gel electrophoresis and waiting while it just wasn't it. So I basically by third year was like, I think this is a viable, feasible career because I'd seen a play at Stratford and I felt like I was better than the young guys in the play, but not as good as the older actors. And I was like, they're moving me. and I should be on stage instead of that motherfucker. And so I applied to theater school, and that literally has been it ever since. Because and that's where, in retrospect, everyone's like, of course. And I was like, right, but if I'd been a doctor, I don't think anyone would think that's weird either, because I was in the Coast Guard and lifeguarded and love science. But I've never looked back. I've never, ever thought you should have maybe done the other. The second that dropped in for me, in what was late second year, early third year, it was like, there's no world, now that I know this other thing's a possibility, where I could ever fall back. People would be like, oh, you can always fall back on your degree. I'm like, why? I think about it this way. There's a line of our past, and then there's an infinite possibility for the future. If this line was unsatisfying enough that I left it, why would I go back along it? Instead, if this doesn't work, it'll lead to some other new possibility, but I would never go back to biochem.
It's interesting because, like, were you ever told that what you're doing is not logical or pragmatic? Like, to drop out of science, which is very logical and pragmatic, and then to go do theater school, yeah, your brain was like, this is correct.
Right.
But did anyone, caregivers, loved ones, say, Shaun, what the heck?
Not one person.
Really?
Oh, now here's...
In the 90s?
Not one. So back in... I told you before we started that I was at my summer camp reunion. We do it every May 2 for. And like, all I did there was play music, dance, do skits. I was a programmer. It was all just, how can we make the next joke or the next fun skit? I would even do monologues at camp for fun. Before I knew I was going to be an actor, like this kind of thing. So all those people are like, duh, of course that's what you did. My parents were both professors and loved the arts. Like, they're the ones who took me to these early Stratford shows, this and that. And I remember calling my dad and going, hey, Dad, because I was going to go to Germany and do my fourth year honors and then my fifth year because I needed time to catch up with the language. I'm good at it, but not great. So I was going to do my fourth and fifth year in Heidelberg. And I got accepted to that program. And I remember my mom being a German prof. This was something we bonded over. And I called my dad. Like, Dad, I got to talk to you about something. I'm making a big change here. And I'm genuinely worried about Mom's response. And he goes, what? And I said, I'm going to be an actor. He goes, oh, fuck. Give me 10 minutes. Call back. So I call back and my mom's like, oh my God, I'm so happy your father told me. And it's because he told her that my performance as Billy Bibbit in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, her response was very much, wow, you were great. He told her that her response made me believe I could be an actor.
Oh, so clever.
Oh, clever, right? My mom was complicated, but also lovely, but she needed to feel like she was at the center of decision.
Oh.
And he understood that. But no, I can't think of one person. Dr. King was the head of chem. And I remember in third year going to him and going, hey, Dr. King, I want to leave the program. And I was in honors, which meant a certain course requirement. But if you can flip a course, I can get my 3-year degree. And he goes, well, let me take a look. And he pulls up. And, I was pretty much like straight A plus student. He goes, Shaun, you can't leave. My job is now to tell you why you can't drop out. He goes, what's going on? I tell him in about 2 minutes that I'm leaving. And as I'm telling him my little journey, he looks at me after, he goes, you might be the only student I've ever had who wants to drop out, who knows why, and who I'd be a fool to stand in their way. I'm going to switch this to a stats course and you're going to get your degree now. And even he got it because it was like, I don't think you understand. Like, I got to go do this. No, not one person ever said that's a bad idea or even you should think about it.
Yeah.
And the other thing, Janet, and I know you call this second act, and I love that. I think it's important is I do think there's a big difference between being 17 or 18 and choosing something at a high school and being 21. It's not much older, but I had backpacked through Europe. I had won and lost already multiple loves in university, and I had been very much living as my own young man. And so it was formative enough that the depth of this was real instead of, I think acting would be fun because I liked my high school play. And whatever that is, I mean, that's not to negate someone in high school who knows what they want or think that a 21-year-old hasn't figured out because I didn't. But that part I had figured out.
Yeah, and I think I have this conversation with a lot of people because there are a lot of people who knew that all they wanted to do was be an actor.
Right.
And I love talking to those people because to me that's just absolutely fascinating. But then I'm like, no, no, it's not that fascinating. Like a lot of people in medicine knew they wanted to be a doctor when they were 12, 13, 14 years old, and that's what they did, and they are that now. It's no different. I
Yeah.
think the big thing that I like, I don't know, naively thought was that because it's such a, I don't know, there are these careers that are very, we celebrate them because they're hard to accomplish,
Yes.
right? Like you became a doctor. Oh, wow. You became a lawyer. Oh, wow. You are a working actor. Oh, wow.
Hmm.
So that must be all you are because in order to become that, you have to tunnel vision focus yourself into this career path with nothing else bothering you. You can't be a science person and an actor because that would pull focus.
Right.
You can't be a doctor and an improv person because that's pulling focus.
But let me ask you about that because I do have a belief that at some point we do have to do that. Somebody lucks into it. Like if you believe Johnny Depp's story, he was going to be a musician and fell into 21 Jump Street and Nightmare on Elm Street. And that might be true because he's gorgeous and has an innate interesting thing. But most of us have, like, my brother's a lawyer. His 20s was just law. Of course, it maintained his relationship and was running and stuff, but just law. And my 20s, and this is something that I think's interesting. Once we focus too much, we're almost unattractive in acting. But in all other careers, when you focus too much, it's a good thing because you're honing an expertise. But in any case, my question for you is like, what do you think as someone who currently does both? Because I think in our 20s, like I don't trust a young person who's not so focused that it's too much.
Yeah.
But once they hit their 30s, I don't think they're going to have a good life if they don't chill a little.
Yeah.
But you seem to maintain both. And how do you find that?
I think it's the constant search for finding that. Because I think, I get asked this question a lot and I don't really have a good answer that's satisfying for people because everyone wants to like, what is the cure for lack of balance? Like how do I find balance? And, we've got three finite resources, time, energy, and money. And the things that I have chosen in my life require a lot of those three things. And for sure, when my medicine becomes all encompassing in a week, I don't have the passion or the energy for my acting. But I think it's that constant search for the balance that is the balance, which is a dumb thing to say to some people, but it's like, no. I go through my week and I'm like, ooh, that was a really heavy medical week and I didn't feel good about any of my acting stuff. Maybe I need to do more acting stuff to balance that out next week. Ooh, there was a lot of acting stuff in my medical career. I was dreading it. But I think it's that constant finding of it.
I love that. Like that's a brilliant answer to me. I was talking to an actor yesterday in her 20s and she was talking about letting go of one thing she did a lot of because it was maybe getting in the way. And my take now, because in my 20s, it was like, I'm quitting. Like at one point, I quit catering and waitering when I had no money because I decided whatever I spend all my time doing is what I am. I don't feel that way anymore, but I did. So I quit. I got a line of credit. I went 13 grand into debt, but then I did book a series lead, my first ever role. So in one hand, I sort of burnt my boat and went, you don't get to turn back. This is what you're doing. The flip side is, I'm like, if this other thing you're doing, in her case, it was music, like there's nothing to do when you don't have an audition, other than maybe an acting class or whatever, unless you're writing and producing, which is a different world than acting. But if I don't have an audition this week, I don't need to think about acting once. But in my 20s, this hypervigilance felt like I was doing something. So mid 30s and beyond, I started to go, oh no. And this goes back to seeking balance. This is about a good life. And if I don't have an acting gig this week or even the potential of one, and I'm not writing, because then I'm a writer, which is fine, but it's okay if I don't do anything related to this. Like it's okay if there is no acting balance this week, because there is no acting this week. And I think that's a very freeing and important place, or it was for me to get to. I don't see a lot of actors who only focus on acting, who thrive. And if I could go back to my young self, I'd be like, dude, there's nothing interesting about an actor. There's something interesting about living. And then when you act, having those perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I've had this conversation with many, many people about even the idea of, should I tell people, agents, casting directors, that I am a doctor as well as an actor? And when I was on an agent search, I had an agent say, I'm really leery of bringing on actors who have other jobs because this industry, you know, you have last minute stuff and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, fair, fair. In the back of my mind, I was like, this is Canada. Every actor needs another job. Like, wouldn't it be nice? But I don't know. I think I agree with you, when you're older, especially, I'm going to say just for me personally, everyone is unique. I am extremely risk averse. I always have been. I'm a doctor. I am also a very pragmatic person who knows what I like, and I know how to schedule my life. So it's like, yeah, does my medical career impact my acting? Yes, both positively and negatively. And you have to, again, trust me that I'm not going to let you down as a human, because I'm not 18 anymore and couldn't care less. No, I'm 40 years old. I'm going to be like, we're a fucking team in this. I'm not going to let you down.
Well, I love that. And I think that agent's leeriness is valid for someone younger because they might be dipping their toe. But, you know, if you're not dipping your toe, it's like, until there's a scheduling conflict, what are we talking about? Like, what are we talking about until there's a scheduling conflict? It's funny you say about, you know, especially in Canada, because I did this exercise with my students the last time I taught Meisner. And I said, listen, we're going to write down your dream career in 5 years. Like, we're going to name it. And I said, now listen, I'm going to tell you out of the gate, because I've done this before. And I was like, you're not allowed to write down working actor in Canada. Because I fucking hope your 5-year plan is greater than making 37 grand a year if you're lucky, piecing together day count, scale rate, episodics here and there, because that makes you a working actor in Canada. But it doesn't. You can't buy a house. You can barely live alone without 3 other jobs. And you could see people go, right, because they were going to write down working actor. Now, it's not a bad goal, but to be realistically told, it's not going to give you what you think you want. Because there's no way you just want to shoot a Murdoch, you know, Way Home episode, and that's enough. Like, it's not. In my most successful years, where I make enough money to put down payments on investment condos, I might shoot 40 days. Maybe 50 max. And that means 1 out of 7 days on average I'm working. The other 6, I have to have a life that has nothing to do with this. And then the working actor would be even less than those 50.
Yeah.
So again, it's like, well, what are you doing with all the rest of your time then? And if an agent's worried that I have other interests. Now, again, commitment, yes. If you do that other thing, will you be unavailable? Valid question. But if you do that other thing and you've never stood us up on an audition or a gig you booked, then it's no conversation that's valid, I think. Especially as we get older. I want my whole fundamental thing is, like, let's say I'm directing or teaching. I'm like, who you are, where you are. The 25-year-old girl who's living in her parents' basement, still has her stuffed toys on her bed, and her mom's her best friend. We're not booking her as the lead in the Florida projects. Like, we're going to go find someone who has that. Doesn't mean that person's not a good actor, though. I want them to speak from where they are, who they are. And that's when it gets beautiful, because I can't do what you can do. And you can't do what I can do. So I better be fucking brilliant at accessing what I can do. And the only things I can access are who I am, where I am. I can't even access who I was when I was 25. You know, I got a buddy who's my age, and he hasn't booked in a bit. And that's just bad luck sometimes. But he's also trying to walk in the rooms with the swagger of when he was 35 booking a lot. When did I book last? Let's do that again. It's like, but you can't be the 35-year-old who just came off 3 pilots walking into the room with your dick out. You are now a guy who's lost, who's had death that was unforeseen at that time. And so that just has to be who we're hiring.
Hmm. Do you have any advice then for people who are looking to get into this career, not as the 20 something ingenue, but later on in life after they've had another career?
Oh, Jesus. Um, First off, whatever advice I give, take it or not, because I don't know. I'm speaking to the people listening. I don't know your life. So it'll only apply to my perspective of how life could be for someone like that, and it might be wrong. Um, the big thing for me is there does have to be a period of hyper dedication. So I don't care if you're 22 or 42, there has to be a showing up. Like, I don't know who you are. I don't care who you are. Not, the business doesn't care who any of us is. So we have to constantly be like, you know, and in my case, let's say that's a check-in with my agent. That's a check-in with my manager in LA. So they know I exist. They know what I'm up to. They know I just won a JITS tournament. All of a sudden I get an audition for something way more martial arts heavy because they don't know that. Now, if you don't have an in yet, getting in. So this is the same for anybody. I don't care if you're 42 or 22. You need to get in. Acting class is more important for showing up as part of a community than it is for any single thing you'll learn in the class. Because people will be like, who's that? They're interesting. Now you exist within the milieu of what I call the entry level of the business, which is learning how to do it. But the big advice is that time is real. I spent a lot of time in my 20s getting high, getting drunk, getting laid, doing all that stuff. And that felt right at that age. To me now, I just turned 50 and the processing of it was bonkers because I went, oh God, when I was 40, the men in my family live into their 80s. I wasn't even halfway. It didn't even register. I was basically 30-10. It was irrelevant. But at 50, no one I know has ever lived to 100. So now I'm over halfway. Now I'm thinking we don't retire, but now I'm thinking 65, 15 years. Shit. Even if I use my sober reset at age 32, that's still 18 since then, 15. Fuck. So the thing for anyone who's older is let time be real and put a real fucking fire under your ass. And this is the same advice I'd give anybody at any age. Because no one knows or cares you exist, and because acting classes are important, but they don't get you anything other than training and that part of community, you have to make a short film today. You have to be in a play today. You have to write that feature today. Because the only way an agent is ever going to take us on and fight for us, that's their currency, is they believe in us and then they have relationships they can vouch for us, is if they have something behind them to go, look, yeah, they're older, you don't know who they are. Of course, those other men or women who you know of are good, but look at this. Or did you see their play? And I think that's really important for everybody because getting an agent, getting a manager, nothing just happens. And everything we can do to give those people who are deciding to support us as ammunition, winning the JITS tournament. Hey, I just lost 10 pounds, put on 5 pounds of muscle. Great, let's fucking go. It gives them permission to fight on a new level. But the real thing is get noticed and know that time is real.
Yeah, that's great advice. Because I think, and it's interesting. I think and I say this to a lot of my patients, and I work in sports medicine. You know, when you get people coming in, they're in their 70s, and they're like, my knee hurts, and I'm like, oh yeah, well, tell me your story. And they're like, well, back in my day when I was 16, I did blah blah blah. And you're like, yeah, but our brains are constantly, like you were saying, at age 30 plus however many years, right? And so we don't see time as urgent. But I think I struggle with that because I see time as urgent because I fear that, especially somebody coming into this industry older, as somebody who's not in demand, I know what I look like. I feel like the train has left the station and I'm just running to catch up to the train because I'm competing against Olympians who have been in this acting business since they were 6. We all look alike. We're a dime a dozen. And I'm just trying to catch up. So there's that fear that time is going too fast.
Yes.
But then the other side of me says, like what you were saying, is that one, nobody cares about you and isn't that great, but nobody knows what you can do. Like there's a weird balance there that my brain can't really figure out. And I know most of my listeners have a tough time with that.
So there's two really important things there for me. One is the time construct, because I grew up sort of loving the hippie era. It's 1983. I'm watching Woodstock documentaries. It's not that much older. I know old hippies who are only in their 40s in the 80s, right? And I kind of latched on, especially through my Zen stuff with martial arts, that time isn't real. Time's a construct. But now I'm like, fuck you, hippie. Your side lost. Because, okay, time's a construct. Slow it down for me then. De-age without using chemicals. That, like, no one's done it. And that's something that I think is really important to say. And if I have anything to offer, like if this is all I could offer on this show, time is real. It is coming for you. If you're 25 and you feel invincible and you're like, fuck off, boomer, great. You've got juice and you got fire in your veins. But one day you'll be like, no, that dude was right. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop for anybody. And you talked about it as one of those three resources. So that's really important to go, okay, if you want to call time a construct and go to Tulum and meditate, brilliant. But you're going to come back and time will have passed, whether you like it or not. However you perceive it, it's going to have passed. So I think that's really important to understand. And, I don't have a lot of regrets. I do have them. But one of them is that when I was in my 20s shooting series leads, I didn't fill the time when I wasn't shooting with anything productive. Martial arts accepted. I was always doing that. But because I was being well paid and I'd have weeks off, I just wouldn't do anything with those weeks off because my ego needs were being met because I was on a billboard. My financial needs were being met. And I say this a lot, but I mean it. I was getting laid. And when I say that, I mean that in terms of validation. I go to the bar and someone would say, I like you. I want you. So when I say get laid, I'm not trying to be, what's the word? Like provocative about it. I'm trying to say on a deep level, it provided you're attractive. And when I'm not shooting for weeks on end, that can feel as good, but not as satisfying as writing a script. The first feature film I wrote that isn't being made yet, it's gotten good response, but no one's making it yet. The night I typed the end and I knew I'd solved the story, it wasn't a perfect draft. I lay in bed and I went, if I died in my sleep tonight, that's the most satisfying piece of art I've ever created. And no one's read it. But the day-to-day of sitting with myself and crafting this story and solving, why would he go there when he's never gone there? What would make him go there that puts him in the shit? It was the best puzzle I'd ever solved in my life. So that wasn't, I need you, I want you, getting laid. It was this very deep sense of being with myself. That two things were important. I forget the other, but whatever. We can pause and go back. But no, it's not that important if I forgot it. But time is fucking real, people. Get out and do things and also enjoy your time off. But I can't really enjoy my time off if I didn't do anything before it. A day off of the gym is really great and really important, and it's recovery. And luckily bodybuilders figured out in the 2000s that you can't call it a rest day because no one wants to rest because the fear of not getting ahead. So they called it a growth day because in that downtime, your muscles have a chance to rebuild. And so that's valid, but there's nothing to rebuild if we didn't just shred ourselves in some way or another. Yeah. So get shredding. And, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm making my next project that I'm writing, that I'm producing and directing. Talking to my producer this morning, sent self-tapes this morning. So already Tuesday's a very full and good day. But most of what will be full in my week is things I'm creating or have created so that I am sort of catching up on that regret. Yeah. Which is okay. I didn't need to do it then. Because to me, regrets, they're an indicator of what we should be doing now. I remember once lying in bed and regretting I didn't buy a house when I could have in my 20s. I had enough money and house prices were low. Why didn't I do that? And then this 12 years ago, I was like, Shaun, all you're doing is telling yourself you want to buy a house. Like all you're doing is naming today's desire. So let the regret be true, but don't live in it as a negative. Live in it as an indicator of this is valuable to me today. It wasn't then. Same with these investment watches. I love them, but I also am like, dude, why didn't you buy Rolexes back when they were cheap? And it's like, well, you just Now you want to buy them, so buy them now. It's okay to have made a mistake and let it be a guide for now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite moments, funny moments on set?
Jesus. Okay, so funny moments are, my brother and I were talking about this because I do stand-up comedy and my brother's funnier than me, but he can't create the world of funny. When the ball's in the air, he can bat it around better than anyone. And we were talking about this the other night. I was like, dude, I forget how funny you are. He goes, well, it's the thing you said with stand-up is creating it is different than walking into it, getting what's going on and being clever. So the reason I say all that is because there's no singular funny moment on set over 25 years of doing this. But I was just on Billy the Kid, this show I've been doing for 3 seasons. So by season 3, we all have a shorthand. And we're all willing to shit on each other because we love each other. And so the funny is that ball in the air. I can't explain it because you'd have to set up 3 years of a relationship and why the one thing was funny. But it's all funny. I don't do the podcast anymore, but I did one called Chatting Between Takes for a while. And the reason I called it that is because of the chatting between takes is one of the purest joys I know. And it's one of the most honest. Like an actor I've never met, never worked with, day 3 has walked up to me and been like, I think I'm going to leave my marriage. I don't like my wife anymore. And you're just like, I get it. I get it. And we're 4 minutes away from a major setup. And you trust me enough and we're getting into it. So I'm sorry. I wish I had more funny stories because to me, that's the funny is the riff, the glue. The glue is what's funny. In terms of best moments, Janet, it's so fucking hard. I've been lucky enough to have many shoot days, but there's so many. Like the first day I ever shot on a TV show called The Associates, it was my first ever gig on camera other than commercials, and I was a lead on the show. And we're in this massive studio that's been built to be a law office, and I've got the suit they fitted me in. I don't really know what I'm doing, but oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. I've made it. That'll hands down be one of the best moments. But then there was a play I did called Waiting for Lewis. Fabrizio Filippo, who some of you will know, he's brilliant. He wrote it, and it was my first real lead as a theater artist. This was before that TV show. And I had trouble accessing emotional depth. And one day in rehearsal, the director had me do this exercise on the monologue that needed it. And I broke down in this very true, deep, meaningful way I'd never felt in my life and never didn't during the performance. So that was one of the best moments of my life because it wasn't important that I broke down. It was important that I accessed something I could never otherwise access. And it let me know I could do this. And I don't want to go into the story too much. I've told it a lot, but I wrecked my career on booze and drugs. And decimated it, got fired from General Hospital on a 4-year contract where I was like winning awards, fan favorite, but I was a drug addict. They let me go after just shy of a year. And I barely worked for the next couple of years. Then I got sober. And a buddy of mine hired me after 9 months sober to be in his movie in Vancouver. Local hire. So I'm in LA. It cost me money to shoot this movie. But the hotel carpet in Langley, because that's the only hotel I could afford, is stained with tears of gratitude. Because I wasn't sure I was ever going to get to do this again. I just wrapped on Billy the Kid, and I can't talk about the story, but the scenes I got to shoot, brutal. Emotionally, the hardest thing I've ever done in my life as an artist. Hurt for 2 months. But when I left, that was one of the greatest joys. And that's that satisfaction joy of, we say in martial arts, you left everything on the mat. There's no fucking fiber of you that didn't do that. So I'm literally spanning first great play, last great role, but the joy is through all of it. You know, these singular moments tend to blend because I'm lucky enough that there's enough of them and that I have a good life in which the great day on set and then coming home and having dinner with my wife, that's as good. And so it ceases to have an importance, but then all of it has equal importance.
Is there anything you're looking forward to coming up?
Personally or professionally?
Both.
Both. Okay. Professionally, this movie, Jess Salguero and I went, oh, dude, like,
My first stunt role, I got to push her real hard.
I love that. Jess is one of the literal best people on the planet. There's no expression of my love for her that's valid.
Aww.
We've always connected, and then I had this idea for a film. It just popped into my head 2 years ago. I was like, so, and again, I don't want to just make this about me. I always feel a responsibility to be a little instructive because I am a teacher. And for anyone listening, I'm telling the story about what I'm excited about, but also there's some specifics in here that are very real. So I get a single sentence in my head. What if this and this? And I go to Jess. Jess, I want to talk to you because I got this idea about a male-female relationship, but it's co-leads. So me writing it alone feels a little wrong. And I want to be clear about that. There's if I'm writing a character and the story's just about me, then I can write Native people, I can write Black people, I can write non-binary people, I can write women, because it's from my perspective. So how the lead is seeing the world, you get to speak from that place. But with co-leads, I can't speak from her journey in a way that I think's valid. So there's a real difference there. And I remember when Buster Scruggs came out, the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, they did a roundtable in Toronto with Native leaders, and they said, or Indigenous leaders, how do you feel about how this was portrayed? And they went, it's great. And you've literally got the like, woo, headdress natives. And they're like, what about all that? They're like, that's what the white person in 1880 would have perceived them as. But then there was this Wind River, I think it's called, Taylor Sheridan, and they were like, that was fucking offensive because he thought he was writing from inside us. So anyways, I go to Jess, I pitch her the idea, she likes it. We spent a couple months structuring the story. Then I started writing it. We've gone back and forth on drafts, and we're in pre-production now. By the time anyone sees this thing, will at least be another year and a half once we shoot it, post it, etc. And I just want to say that as the instructive bit. Single sentence in my head driving. Now we're making a movie. Everybody who's read it is on board. So it obviously has some validity in terms of storytelling. But it's still going to be a basically 4-year process. There's nothing I'm more excited about professionally in this world. I'm auditioning for series leads on US shows. Would be great to get one. I hope I do. I give my best work. But I can't have any control over that. I can have control over, Peter Harvey's producing. He was like, I can budget this week. Can you get me your stuff by the 19th? Well, sure enough, last night at 11 p.m., I'm sending him the stuff he needs because I don't want to be the reason the gap prolongs, because there's enough gaps in everything no matter what. Even if all the ducks are lined, something still has to wait 3 weeks. So if I wait a week to do the thing that's my responsibility, now it's 4 weeks. And now it takes 5 years for this movie to get out. So the excitement is that even though I can't control most, in this I do have a little bit that I can implement. And I'm not a big fan of needing power, but I don't know. I think the greatest power in this world is to have an idea and be able to execute it. And so to have an idea in my head driving and then have it come to fruition, it's brilliant. Personally, honestly, just leaning into accepting aging. That includes working towards my black belt in jiu-jitsu. That includes trips with my loved ones and solo trips. But just going, it's okay. I've chosen not to get Botox. I've chosen not to fix the hairline. It's the choice I made. And every once in a while I go, what if you did? And it's like, maybe, but that's not the journey I want to be on. And that isn't to say that the journey's free. Like approaching 50, I went into a 3-month existential black hole of time is real. And on the other side of it, I feel better than if I'd pretended it wasn't true or done the cult of positivity around it or tried to fight it with things that, like, I fight aging by being healthy and curious so the mind and body stay good. But I'm not going to fight it, and I respect everyone else who fights it the way they want. Good for you, truly. But for me, I want to lean into the journey because 40s was better than 30s. 30s was better than 20s. I have to assume that barring tragedy, and by the way, my 40s included death. It included great loss of love. 50s, let's fucking go. Let's see what's up. So I think what I'm most excited about is just the leaning into the day to day. And the last thing I want to say about time, unless it comes up again, is there's a phrase as you get older, the days get long, but the years get short. Mm-hmm. And I'm finding that to be very true, where it's like, wait, what do you mean that was 12 years ago? That's fucked. But yesterday, I woke up in Georgian Bay, drove home, did a bunch of stuff, worked with an actor, they worked with me, worked with another, like full fucking day that felt as long as any good month because it was inhabited. But again, that's one where it's like, I was 18, I think, maybe 19, and I became buddies with the guy who was 33. He ran the video store in London, Ontario. We're still best friends, by the way. And it was just one of those, I'd always go into the store to see him and chat about movies. He goes, why don't we just hang out and watch one? And we became buddies. So he once said to me, Shaun, you're going to be my age before you fucking know it. You don't believe me. You're going to wake up 33, and you're not going to know where the time went. And I was like, yeah, old man, whatever. And he was so right. He was so right. There was no time passed before I was like, Tom, I'm 33 and you were right. Yeah.
Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice?
Just, yeah. Come back tomorrow. Right? Like, everything's about consistency and attendance. So I'm 30. I get fired from that show I talked about. Took me 2 years to get sober. I mean, it took me a lot longer than that, but in that last stretch. And then here I am, healthy, young, arguably becoming happy for the first real time in my life. It wasn't about achievement. It was about sense of self. And I don't have a career. I can't get hired for almost 3 years. That 2 days notwithstanding. It was brutal, but I just kept coming back. Send another good audition. Get back into acting class. And it is a sober tenet, right? Like, keep coming back. If you fade out of this, no one minds. Mm-hmm. No one minds when another actor drops. Everything's war of attrition. And in my 20s, there were 50 guys who looked like me and could do what I could do. And now there's 8. I'm talking Canada, if that. And that's just war of attrition. So if you're not getting what you want today, just keep coming back. And also the wisdom part, that would be the advice. The wisdom part is you don't have the answer yet, and you probably never will, because there's no singular thing that's going to solve this for you. If you're looking for a solution, there isn't one. But, and it's much like you're seeking as process, not as answer for balance. It's listen to what you're hearing back, right? Like, there are common denominators called you enough that little shifts can be made. So if the feedback is it's a bit much, great. Practice the other. Practice doing too little. That won't be some brand new solution that puts you on that billboard tomorrow, but it's a constant, all good acting is responding to what's in front of you truthfully under imagined circumstances. That's it. That's the totality of a good scene or a good part. And if you can't do that in your own life by hearing what's coming back, and by the way, if somebody wants to quit, if somebody goes, well, then I should quit. Maybe. I don't know, because it doesn't matter that you're an actor. I think nothing truly matters, but it matters that you have a good life. And, for me, the good life includes the challenges and includes the ups and downs, but I don't want the downs, but I know they're coming. So it's how to navigate it, etc. But I've thought about quitting acting. I'll tell a quick story. I was down in LA with Jess. We were there separately, but hanging out every day. And I was about 46, 47. This is like 3.5 years ago. I was like, Jess, I came back strong after COVID. I was one of the guys. I was on shows. I was shooting movies in the States. None of it was satisfying. It was all okay. The parts were fine. I was a working actor. And I was lucky. I knew that. But it wasn't fulfilling. And I said, none of this is that great. and I'm not that satisfied. And if this is my career in a few years, I will be something else by the time I'm 50. And that week I got the audition for Billy the Kid. And I'd already read for one part that I didn't get, and that's the one I wanted. So when they sent this, I didn't want it. And I just said, Jess, I'm saying no to this. And I said no to the audition like 5 or 8 times. They said, no, it's more than you think. I said, I've been told that before. I'm good. And then they sent scenes from season 1 that were better than the audition size. So I went, okay, well, I could do that, but still it's not enough. And then they said, okay, but season 2's good. The long and the short of it is I taped it begrudgingly, got the gig, still said no 4 or 5 more times. And then they ended up in the contract reflecting their commitment to the part. Mm. The long and the short of that is I was fully ready to be like, no, this isn't moving the needle where I need it to be moving. Now, not every gig has to do that, but big picture, the career has to be doing that. So me personally, I don't need to be an actor. I don't define myself as an actor. It just happens to be what I do sometimes. I'm also a martial artist. I'm also a lover and a husband and a son and a brother and all that stuff. No one role is more important than any else, to the point where none of them truly matter other than what am I doing today. So don't need to be an actor. Find a version of joy in being an actor that's sustainable over time. But, and this is the last thing, love your auditions. Love your auditions. Your audition is the only time you get to do what you think it is. You were playing in the park as a kid, doing skits with swords, and do that because that's when you loved it, or you loved that high school play. The first take, or not first take, but the first submission of your audition, that's the only time it will ever be what you think it could be. After that, even if you get the part, you're in collaboration. Producers, directors, advertising focus groups will start to shape. And that's a good thing. We want to collaborate. We want to be doing this. But that first pass is the one time you get to go, watch this. Watch what you've been fucking missing. Now, you don't need to have that juice. You might not feel that way. But when you watch that tape back that you're about to send, go, yes, that's what I want to do on that show. And you'll get it or you won't. But you'll be noticed over time for sending full, rich work. And as long as we try and get Bryan Cranston has a version of saying this very same thing. As long as you're trying to get the role, you'll diminish what you offer best to the role. And as long as you go, wicked. Like I have 2 auditions this afternoon. I'm tired. I would love to just be phoned and offered these parts. But again, reality, I can't wait to do these and throw something towards my team and then them toward the casting that I'm like, I can't fucking wait for them to watch this. And I'd be shocked if I didn't get it. And then I won't.
Yeah.
And then when I will, you know, there's great dissatisfaction in this business because we audition for 30 things we're dying to get. And then we book something that wasn't the whatever. And we go, okay, well, that's pretty good, I guess. So it's a constant settling. Mm-hmm. But that's okay. You know, every great role you see in Hollywood, 5 movie stars settled for the other movie that they're promoting because they wanted that one. It never stops, so we have to be okay with it.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you, Shaun, for being my guest this week. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy creative schedule to chat with me and with my guests. I so appreciate you. I hope you all will tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye!